You might be surprised, perhaps, to know, I'm currently just under 220 pounds. I
Mhm.
started at 120 when I became vegan in 1995. So it's part of my story is putting on a full 100 pounds on a plant-based diet. But for the past 9 years, almost 10 years, I haven't used any sport supplements.
To another episode of the Thrive State podcast. I really hope that listening to this podcast has brought you, your friends, and your family a lot of value. And you know what? With this episode today, I'm going to be giving you just more of that. Again, if you are loving this podcast, if you're loving what you're getting from my content, please help us out by subscribing to the podcast, going to ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Leave us a 5-star review. It's going to help this podcast grow so I can bring in more awesome guests, such as the one that I have on the show today. Now, the person I have on the podcast today is a vegan bodybuilder. Although we just very slightly differ in our approaches to diet, he is going to tell you about mindset. He's going to tell you about discipline and dedication. And I always say this, I'm always going to bring in the experts to you, even though they may differ from my own opinions. You need to try things out for yourself. And you know what? You're going to find genuine knowledge and a genuine heart from this guy. You're really going to enjoy this podcast. So you're going to meet vegan bodybuilder Robert Cheek. He grew up in a farm in Corvallis, Oregon, where he adopted a vegan lifestyle in 1995 at the age of 15, where he was just weighing 120 pounds. Today, he is the author of multiple books, including Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, Shredded, Plant-Based Muscle, and the newly released book, The Plant-Based Athlete. He's often referred to as the godfather of vegan bodybuilding, growing the industry from infancy in 2002 to where it is today. As a two-time natural bodybuilding champion, Robert is considered one of Veg News magazine's most influential vegan athlete. He tours around the world, sharing his story of transformation from a skinny farm kid to a champion vegan bodybuilder. Robert is the founder and president of Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness and maintains the popular website veganbodybuilding.com. He's a regular contributor to No Meat Athlete, Forks Over Knives, and Vegan Strong, is a multi-sport athlete, entrepreneur, and has followed a plant-based diet for more than 25 years. Robert lives in Colorado with his wife and 2 rescued chihuahuas. And today we have just an amazing, heart-centered conversation. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the vegan bodybuilder himself, Robert Cheek. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive State podcast. Robert Cheek, the vegan bodybuilder. How are you, brother?
I am great, Dr. V. Thank you so much for having me. Really looking forward to today's conversation.
I can't wait either. I mean, when my trainer calls me up in the middle of the day and puts us, both you and I, on video camera together and say, hey, you really need this guy on your podcast. You know what? I felt your energy through that phone call.
Well, I appreciate that. And I remember I said something towards the end, something about discovering the best version of yourself or being your personal best. And you're like, that's it. That's what I want to have you on the show to talk about, something along those lines. And so, yeah, I felt that too. We just connected. We're both authors. We both are looking to, elevate other people, lift other people up, and help everyone really discover that thing, that it inside of them. And
exactly. And I feel that within you right now. There is a glow, there's an energy to your life. And I definitely want to be able to extract that so the viewers, the listeners, the watchers all get a taste of that. Now, before we dive into that, before we dive into your story, I do the Fast Five, the 5 to Thrive, which is just 5 quick questions to kind of get the conversation going and lubricated. And then we can potentially extract from those questions and those answers how the podcast will go. So are you ready?
Let's dive into it.
Each one of these questions are worth 100 points. I decide how much each point value is worth. And in the end, you might win a prize with me. All right. First question here is number 1. What is your favorite book?
Ooh, my favorite book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I read it as a middle school kid, maybe as a high school kid, and that changed my life forever. So I have to give tremendous amount of value to How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Excellent. One of my favorites as well. Number two, what is your earliest childhood memory?
My earliest childhood memory is actually sitting on the floor, rolling a ball back and forth with a family friend. I must have been 3 or 4. I'm trying to go back further, but I can't. That's the thing that I come up with. The second one, because it's notable, is in preschool, hanging out with some friends. And the reason I say it's notable is because I'm still best friends with that kid,
Wow.
Jordan, today. And he's the one that got me into bodybuilding. He's the one that helped me with my writing career. He's the one I celebrate success with. And I remember spending time with him when we were only 4 or 5 years old.
Wow. Preschool friends, friends for the life. Number three, what are you most proud of?
I am most proud of representing my hometown, the honoring the teachers who taught me, the coaches who taught me along the way. And even as we're talking, Dr. V, at this exact moment, I have the #1 best-selling sports psychology book in America on Amazon, one of the best-selling books, period. That is a product of my teachers, my coaches, my parents, my family, my siblings. That is what I'm proud of, is that environment that cultivated, whatever energy I took and made something happen with it.
Oh, beautiful. Number four, what brings you the most joy?
What brings me the most joy is helping others, and that is absolutely sincere. And it's almost in a selfish way. The more I give, the more I get. The more I do, the better I feel. So absolutely, lifting others up, bringing others joy brings me joy.
All right. And final question. So far, 150 points out of 100 for each one of these questions. You're blowing it out of the water, one of our best contestants. But our last question is this. What is one thing that people don't seem to know about you that you wouldn't mind sharing on this show right now?
There's something that not many people know, and you may not know this, and maybe people can't even tell, but I actually suffer from performance anxiety. Doing things like this interview is challenging for me. That wasn't always the case. I've been on a speaking tour for 15 years, but over the past 5 years, maybe as a result of comparing myself to my prior self, whatever the case is, don't know exactly how it happened, but I actually have been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, and I've tried myriad things to overcome it, and including doing interviews on a daily basis, which helps me practice and train and improve and relax a little bit.
That's beautiful. You know what? I actually have that myself. So it would be great to kind of like speak with in depth a little bit more in this interview, because I actually have a friend. His name is Prabhat Gotham. He is deep in the plant-based space, and
He's one of my friends as well. He actually hosted my 30th birthday party.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. So he has a story of how when you first started and where you are now and the growth that he's seen over the past decade. And I think that's very inspirational. So anybody wanting to start anything, whether it be a diet, whether it be speaking, whether it be something that brings them anxiety, both, I think you and I share a very similar story. And I would love to get into the mindset of how you got to that level. So we're going to start our interview now. You are right now already a bestseller. The book is called The Plant-Based Athlete, and it is #1 on so many different categories. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I want to kind of dive into your life, but a quick, just wanted to let my audience know that I am not a vegan, but we do share many ideologies here. And what I do want to bring on the show is this. I want people, people's genetics are different. People's biology is different. Their lifestyles are a little bit different. I want to bring the best, the people that have excelled in whatever they're doing, to be able to give the people the very best information, what people are doing, which is why, even though we don't have the same diet, I want you to bring that knowledge into the audience here today. So, and maybe you could share why when I went vegan, maybe I did something wrong. I didn't feel just as good. Can't wait to dive into that. So first question for you is, how did you grow up? Did you grow up in a plant-based family? And when did you make that transition for yourself? Because I know you've been plant-based for at least 25 years.
Yeah, quarter century now. Dr. V, it started actually the complete opposite of growing up in a plant-based environment. My parents both worked in the animal science department at Oregon State University. My father is actually a world-renowned animal science researcher and professor. He's an expert in raising animals for food, and he wrote about 15 textbooks and traveled to six
Amazing.
continents talking about that topic as I was growing up. So he's actually an animal scientist and specialist in the complete opposite field that I am in. And both my parents came from farming backgrounds. I grew up on a farm. I spent the first 18 years of my life on a farm, bottle feeding baby calves before getting on the school bus, checking for eggs every day, doing chores for 2 hours a day, that kind of thing, showing dairy cows at the county fair, showing chickens, selling them at the auction, this whole thing. And it was really my older sister, Tanya, who she became a vegetarian at, who knows, maybe age 8 or something back in the early 1990s. And back in 1995, she was organizing an animal rights week at our high school, just a week-long event with speakers, videos, literature, conversations. And so on December 8th, 1995, I decided, out of respect for my sister, I'll become a vegan, whatever that is. And I'd do it for a week. And that week has turned into, I think, more than 1,300 weeks, more than 25 years. I went on to organize the Animal Rights Week 2 years later as a senior in high school. I was a 5-sport athlete, continued to pursue all of those sports, went on to run cross country in college for a year. And then I discovered the joy of weightlifting and went on to pursue that and eventually become a champion vegan bodybuilder, and then go on to write books on that topic.
Oh, that's beautiful. What in that initial week do you think struck that chord within you? Because it really seemed like something happened that week and something shifted where you really felt like this is your life mission since experiencing that.
Yeah, Dr. V, it was compassion. The animals that I had raising, the dairy calves, the chickens, the rabbits, the guinea pigs, the horses, ponies, they had first names. They were pets. I felt close to them. And then I realized, that all animals have the desire to live a life free of fear, pain, and suffering, not just the animals on my farm, but anywhere. And so I wanted to give animals that chance. So it was when I saw videos of large scale factory farming and animal testing that I decided, you know what, I wouldn't want this inflicted on me or my friends or even my pets. I don't want to contribute to that either. And so that's when I made the switch, knowing very little about nutrition or plant-based nutrition or anything like that, things that I would learn later on as I would get older.
So when you first started, was it a very natural transition? Did you just go from, okay, I'm going to stop eating animals now and I feel perfectly fine? Or did you need to fine tune the methodology to know how much protein and how much of the different macronutrients you need to actually be healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. It actually wasn't a super smooth transition. Again, this was 1995. I was 15 years old, didn't have a lot of my own money to, buy the things that I wanted to buy or my own transportation to get around. And so, I didn't feel all that great at first, to be honest. I mean, and that's documented in my story too, that, I knew what I didn't want to eat. Right. But I didn't know exactly what I should be eating. And so I was a high school kid. I was eating bagels and chips and salsa and candy and soda and all this. And of course, as a teenager, our bodies are resilient. I was still a good athlete and could do all these things, fueled by a lot of processed foods. But I also had a garden on the farm and a bunch of fruit trees, and I could just go pick apples and pears and berries and things like that. And I would eat pasta and maybe oatmeal or a plant-based cereal and soy milk or something back then.
Right.
And I started to figure things out. And so there was a learning curve.
Yes.
At least during that period of my life, fast forward 25 years later, it's a much more common lifestyle, many more, whether it's restaurants or even, convenience stores, fast food, there's plant-based options everywhere now. And it's just a lot different landscape than it was back then.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of start off thinking, oh, okay, well, a cookie is vegan and, there's certain vegan fast foods. Just because you get rid of the meat doesn't mean there's necessarily healthy. There are some unhealthy vegan options as well. just because it doesn't contain animal products,
Oh
correct?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. A lot of pastries
Yeah.
can be made vegan, or sometimes are naturally vegan. There's a massive amount of candies and sodas and things like that are vegan. It's about making conscious decisions. You know,
Yes.
I think there's still room for, at least there is in my diet because I'm pretty active, room for vegan pizza and vegan ice cream and things like that. But they make up a small portion of my total calorie intake.
Yeah.
The rest of my calorie intake is fruits and vegetables and leafy greens and legumes like lentils and beans and grains like rice of all different types, and some of my favorite foods like potatoes and sweet potatoes and yams. And
Mm.
that makes up the bulk of my 3,100 calories that I consume every day. You know, that could be oatmeal with fruit and nuts, right? That could
Mhm.
be a burrito bowl with beans and rice
Mm.
and avocado, lettuce, tomato, salsa, mushrooms, like a lot of Thai food, Indian food, Ethiopian food, food that's naturally rice and vegetables with some, you know, curry sauce or other flavoring seasonings. And so, yeah, it's a super diverse diet now. But do I have some vegan pizza or lasagna or candy or soda or ice cream every now and then? Sure, as long as it's plant based or cruelty free. Yeah, it fits in every once in a while, and I think that makes a really balanced life as well.
No, certainly. I mean, it certainly has to be sustainable for you. And I love everything you just listed, because I would probably say that your diet and my diet is probably about 95 to 97% identical. People read the Thrive State book. That's excellent. So let me ask you this. How do you feel about supplementation out there? Are there camps that actually supplement with the vegan diet? How important is the B12 supplementation? I know some people are doing it, some people aren't. Where do you stand on that camp, and what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think vitamin B12 should be supplemented by everyone. You know, it doesn't
Yeah.
come from animals, it doesn't come from plants. It's a organic compound that comes from bacteria. It's consumed through bacteria that's found on either dirty food or in red meat or in, you know, certain types of soil. And so in today's very sterile food system, you don't get a lot of it.
Yeah.
There was this great PhD professor when I was on tour in Southeast Asia. He's written a bunch of vegan books. He lives in Indonesia, and he was saying, for example, you know, in his country, there's a lot more natural B12 just because the food isn't quite as sterile as it is here in the U.S. So the produce, the vegetables, there's going to be some more natural B12 there. We
Mhm.
just don't have that here in
Yeah.
America. But we also, as my friend Dr. Michael Greger says, you know, we also don't have cholera. You know, we don't have a lot of other issues because our food is so clean and our water
Mm.
is so clean. And so vitamin B12, I think everybody should supplement with, because it's just hard to find and it's very, very important, especially for our brains and for neurons and for our vitality and our health. And as far as other supplements go, you might be surprised, perhaps, to know, you know, I'm currently just under 220 pounds. I
Mhm.
started at 120 when I became vegan in 1995. So it's part of my story is putting on a full 100 pounds on a plant-based diet. But for the past 9 years, almost 10 years, I haven't used any sport supplements,
Mm.
just vitamin B12. That's it. No protein powders, no protein bars, no meal replacements, BCAAs, creatine, anything like that. And that's, you know, I was inspired by Dr. T. Colin Campbell, who co-authored the China study, when I took his course at Cornell University about plant-based nutrition, and that changed the way that I viewed protein supplementation, other sport supplementation, and I decided to do the one thing I hadn't done, which was give it a try. Just go,
Mm.
you know, without, because when I got into bodybuilding,
Yeah.
age 19, 20, I'd already been vegan for 5 years, but I got into the magazines, the books, you know, Arnold and Joe Weider and all that. And so I loaded up on plant-based protein powder, sometimes 5 protein drinks a day and all this stuff, did it for years. And I just decided, you know what, let's see if I can do it without it. The results were I got bigger, stronger than I'd ever been in my entire life. And I started eating more complex carbohydrates, getting more calories coming from whole foods versus, you know, powder and supplement form.
Yes.
And it's been great. It's been a great 10 years. And B12 has been the only thing that I've been consuming while I continue to build and reach new goals in my 40s.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a great protocol. And I know that the book is written with really the protocols of the elite of the elite, all actually following a plant-based diet. The book is entitled The Plant-Based Athlete. So tell us a little bit about the inspiration of the book and how you went about kind of synthesizing all the information from everybody that you've interviewed.
Yeah, that's a great question because I've written other books
Yeah.
on the subject. In fact, three
And
other
I've
books.
seen them all. And actually, we both know a very, very famous trainer. His name is Eric, the trainer. I go to his gym and I actually see a bunch of your books there. He would actually work out with some of your t-shirts on while we're working out. So I've gotten to know your name, but now I get to see him face too.
Yeah. So, and that's great. I love hearing that. And Eric is a great guy. I saw him just, a few weeks ago when I was in LA doing some book promo work. And, about this new book, I've written books. My co-author, Matt Fraser, has written other books. But in this particular book, for years, I have wanted to tell the compelling stories of the world's greatest plant-based athletes, almost like Tim Ferriss style approach of interviewing the best of the best. And so I spent the better part of a year doing that. I was doing it in person before COVID. I was interviewing people over the phone or over Skype or over email after that. And what I was able to do was talk to about a dozen Olympic athletes or former Olympic athletes, about 24 world champions, people who are the best in the entire world in their sport and who are also plant-based, and dozens of other professional athletes, whether they're current or former NFL or NHL or professional tennis or soccer or major sports, and share their stories in this book. And so that those stories are woven through the entire book, like all with the plant-based nutrition, the nutrient density, the calorie density, the protein, carbohydrates, fats, supplementation, recovery, meal plans, mindset, recipes, all of that. But their stories are what bring the book to life. It's what, captivates you and inspires you to be like, man, I may not be an Olympic athlete like them, but I can take away lessons from what I learned from them and apply them to my life. And I can get one step closer, one step further in my own journey, in whatever I'm trying to do, weight loss, increase energy, prevent or reverse disease, perhaps just be my best self and live my best life. Those kind of things are why we put those stories in there.
That's beautiful. In that story in there, is there one that resonates with you personally the most that kind of you think about and say, wow, that's a story, being a plant-based athlete such as yourself, still it actually inspires you?
Yeah, there's actually a number of them.
Yeah.
But if I really had to pick one, man, that's hard. But what I'm really resonating with is Rich Roll's story. Now, Rich Roll has a fantastic podcast, the Rich Roll Podcast. He's written a bunch of books, including Finding Ultra. But his story is about reaching his athletic peak in his 40s and about not giving up and about showing up day after day after day. He has this famous quote. It's actually in the book. I don't have it totally memorized, but it's something like, because he had a health issue in his, in his 40s, and he was alcoholic and he was in rehab and all this kind of stuff. And he says this thing, something like, I didn't reach my athletic peak until age 43. I didn't write my first book until age 44. I didn't start my podcast until age 45. He said at age 30, I thought my life was over. And at age 52, I realized it's just beginning.
That's beautiful.
I've gone through some of that stuff. I was a competitive bodybuilder. I even competed at the 2006 INBA Natural Bodybuilding World Championships. And I retired from bodybuilding at age 29 to go on to write books. And, my career was over. I had some back issues and, some spine issues, herniated discs and stuff. And I felt a little bit down on myself, and I wasn't as big and strong as I used to be, and all these things. And to come back, and to come back with a book like this, that's one of the best selling in America, and get myself in good shape again, and to work hard and feel confident again. That story resonates with me. Whereas there's other people who overcame obesity and then became ultra marathon champions and all that. I can't necessarily relate to that, though their stories are super inspiring, or being an Olympic figure skater like Megan Duhamel. But Rich Roll's story, I can connect with on a number of levels. And I just really appreciate it. And I just really get moved when I read it, and it makes me want to just show up again and again and again. I even thought about it in the gym last night.
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by Thrive State MD Immunity Supplement. I actually developed this supplement at the start of the coronavirus pandemic. As some of you may know, I'm a frontline healthcare worker and have worked directly with COVID-19 patients. Some of you may also know that During that time, my fiance was pregnant with my daughter. I had a bonus daughter at home, and I also had elderly parents I needed to protect. I wanted to serve my patients at the highest level while making sure that the people around me were safe. And I couldn't find a product that was out there that actually had quality ingredients at meaningful dosages that would keep my immune system operating at its optimal form. I ended up having to buy supplements from multiple different sources to get the right quality, the right quantity, and the right formulation of an immune product I know would keep me safe. And while I never got sick using that formulation, it costed me hundreds and hundreds of dollars. The ThriveState Immunity Formula is a premium immune formula designed to enhance the body's own natural immune defenses. It is a unique blend of well-researched vitamins, minerals, and medicinal mushrooms, including vitamin C and D3, zinc, quercetin, astragalus, cordyceps, reishi, turkey tail, and beta-glucan. Kaya is now born. She's 2 months old as of the time of this recording. I'm still continuing to serve by treating COVID-19 patients, and I feel really confident about my immune system, applying the techniques outlined in my book, ThriveState, and taking the ThriveState MD immunity supplement. If you haven't already, pick up my book at thrivestatebook.com. And if you would like an immunity supplement of your own, the listeners of the ThriveState podcast get 20% off by using the code THRIVE20. Remember, you are your best medicine. Now let's get back to the episode.
Wow, what a beautiful story. And I think it does resonate with America because right now, I mean, I would probably say, 1 in 2 Americans out there is pre-diabetic or diabetic. 1 in 4 Americans has multiple chronic diseases that are out there. And like you were saying, I think Rich Roll, what was he, like a lawyer?
Yeah.
Yep, he was a lawyer and probably had some heart conditions, trying to walk up the stairs and nearly passed out, correct?
Yep, collapsed on the stairs on his 40th birthday.
Yeah, and I feel like there's so many people heading in that direction that people can really kind of touch in and say, what type of life am I living? And if I start to wake up to how I'm living, and like you said, show up day after day, putting in the discipline, life can be different. And actually, life can be anew. He almost kind of lived again now at the age. How old did you say he is now?
I think he's about 55 now. The quote was from a few years ago when he mentioned being age 52. It's a viral quote that went popular on Twitter. But I think I just saw him a few weeks ago, and I think he said he's about 55 now.
Oh, wow. What a beautiful story. And if you haven't read his book is Finding Ultra. That's also a beautiful book. You should pick that up. Definitely pick up this book over here, The Plant-Based Athlete. That's really excellent. What I love about all the elements in the book too is, we talk about it, in my book, ThriveState, which is not just the nutrition component, it's also sleep. It's also movement. It's also your mindset, your relationship, your sense of purpose. And it's all those things that factor into who you actually get to become. Is that right?
Absolutely. And actually, that's what I love about what you do. And having watched you speak on stage and watch your videos on social media and reading about the ThriveState and your mindset, absolutely. There's all these different pillars out there. I mean, you can't just be this super fit individual on the exterior and have these internal dilemmas and problems and stresses and worries that affect your heart on an emotional level, or affect your mind on a negativity level, or affect your motivation. I mean, Dr. V, we have 1,440 minutes every day. What are you choosing to do with your time based on your mindset, your attitude, your passion, your desire, your wanting to give, your level of contribution, whatever? You have to have that balanced state. You can't go and be this great athlete or ambassador and not be getting good quality sleep, and not be eating healthy food, and not knowing when it's okay to rest, or when it's okay to laugh or smile or relax a little bit and breathe. And that's all part of the ThriveState. It's diet's one component, right? Exercise is one component.
Yeah.
What are your relationships like? Where's your mind at when you wake up or when you go to bed at night? What are you thinking about? What are you pursuing? What's your purpose? What's your drive? When you answer those questions, that three-letter word, right? The little word why. Answer the question why. That's when you start showing up. And with people like Rich Roll and people like myself and 50 other athletes I interviewed for the book, they answer that question enthusiastically. That I want to change my life today. Why would I delay taking action on something that could change my life for the better till tomorrow? Why put that off when I can make that happen today? And that's really one of the things we're trying to communicate in this book. And yes, you look at it, you say, well, the plant-based athlete, it must just be for athletes. It must just be for people who eat plants. We have entire sections about mindset in there, about getting your mind right, understanding your why, what compels you to do this. Because let me ask everyone listening, who cares about your health? Who cares about fitness? Who cares about your relationships? Well, if you do, show me, state your case. You let your actions dictate that you do care, that this is something that's important to you, and then take action to make it happen.
Yeah, there's so many people who are kind of where they're at. I mean, their health is basically a construct of their daily actions and habits. Whether they're the couch potato or whether they're in a sort of emotional home of stress and anxiety. So a lot of people want that very first step, and people have different answers to what that might be. But for you, the person picking up that book, what might, maybe the first step is to pick up the book, but outside of picking up the Plant-Based Athlete, what would you say would be a nice, easy way for somebody to start to live that life that they know they're meant to live?
You know what I've done for basically as long as I can remember, and I don't know how this started. I've been doing it since elementary school. I've been able to connect the dots ahead of time. And that's what I do right now. To this day, I pause and think, where do I want to be 5 years, 10 years, whatever? And not in a cliche way, like, tell me your 5-year plan, right. Tell me your 10-year plan. No. In a real meaningful conversation. It doesn't, and you don't even have to put a timeline on it, but what do I want to accomplish and why does it matter to me? And then I think, okay, what do I need to do to make that happen? And there was a reason I stopped in Eric the Trainer's gym on my way to the airport and did that workout there, right? I knew there was a reason behind that. I get to see a guy who's going to lift me up and who's going to support my work, and he's going to connect me with other people. And it's a way for me to grow, and I can connect with people like you and others. And that's going to support this work that I'm doing to eventually become a New York Times bestseller and all these things. Like, that's part of this, right?
Yeah.
I just did 7 interviews in 2 days. I'm talking just from let's say a book performance perspective. That's all connecting the dots to get to the destination. So yesterday I was pretty tired. I had to get up early in the morning for a radio interview in New York, like at 5 a.m. or something. But I knew I still wanted to go to the gym because I'm thinking, man, I got a book coming out in 10 days. I want to be able to represent that lifestyle on a physical level that I'm proud of. And that's the requisite action, is that I need to go exercise.
Yeah.
And so if you do want to run a marathon, or if you do want to drop a little bit of body weight, or if you do want to improve your heart strength or lung strength, or whatever your purpose is, or your reason for exercising or eating healthy, think about those things out in the future. And then think, what do I have to do today that's going to impact a month from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and do those things. And sometimes it's just answering the simple question, what is this action doing for me? I do that at the grocery store. We all go there when we're hungry sometimes. Man, the bag of chips sounds really good, right? Oil and salt, and I want it. Or this processed prepared food, I just want it, What will this food do for me? Is it hurting me or is it helping me in the big picture? And what decision can I make today? And maybe I go get, little clamshell of raspberries instead, or I go get some plant-based sushi instead. I get something different that's there at the store, right? Pick out some produce instead. I get home and I get my mind right. So that's really, Dr. V, to me, that's the most important thing, is connect the dots ahead of time, understand where you're going, and then take the right path to get there. And if you do it enough, it can happen. And I can tell you, I'm one example of living proof of that. You know how laughable it is that I would get into bodybuilding? I weighed 89.25 pounds in 8th grade, 120 pounds when I became vegan back in the 90s, which was unheard of. Nobody's doing it. The internet was just barely coming alive at that time. I went on to become a champion bodybuilder multiple times. I don't have a background in writing, no business doing that. I learned how to write every day, and get better and better and better. Became, one of the most prolific self-published authors in America, which landed me this big book deal because I, sold 60,000 copies out of my car driving around the country. The reason for it, because I connected those dots ahead of time. I had that vision. I wanted to be a writer since I was in the 3rd grade, 8 years old. And it took me 33 years to get to this point with this book. But I saw it. I visualized it back then. And this is true. I'm not just making this up. I wrote about it in journals. I have journals dated back from the 1990s when I talked about when someday I'm going to write at least 3 books. This is my 4th. You got to visualize it in the future, and then you can make that happen.
Oh, how beautiful. I just wanted to reiterate for people that power of having a goal, wanting it so bad, and starting to feel it in your body, and then just take daily actions day after day to have that goal really manifest. I was had a podcast with somebody who created a very great life for himself. His name is David Lee. He's a photographer who photographs basically the largest celebrities in the world. And he's kind of a bit of a quiet guy, but he said the exact same thing. You need to know what you want and start to visualize it and feel it in your body, and then just take actions consistent to that, which is brings me to the next question, which I know pretty much what the answer will be is, and that you've alluded to earlier in the show, which is this performance anxiety. I mean, Prabhat Gautam, a good friend of ours, he is deep in the vegan space. We're actually really good friends. We speak all the time. And I told him, hey, do you know this guy named Robert Cheek? And he says, yes. It's a funny story. Decades ago, we were probably in this room, and Robert went on, and he wasn't able to really carry the crowd, but look at where he is now. So let me ask you, Robert, how much anxiety do you have with public speaking, and what did you do? Because right now, as you're speaking to me, directly across here, you are so inspirational. Words just fly out of your mouth, and you're connecting with, I know, everybody listening here. How did you make that happen, particularly when this was something that was so produced a lot of anxiety for you before?
Yeah, I've always been kind of a nervous kid. I used to actually sweat through my socks that would, if I wore like Converse or Vans shoes in high school, like that would actually be wet. They would sweat through my shoes if I wore those kinds of shoes. Still happens to this day. In fact, the shoes I'm wearing right now, I sweat through their sweat marks, from the salt, all over these red shoes that I'm wearing. I've always been kind of a nervous, anxious person. When I was a kid, I was in 4-H, like I said, and I showed animals at the county fair and sold them to the auctions. But 4-H is much more than just animals. Mm-hmm. And there's public speaking, and Toastmasters was part of that. My parents made me do it, and I hated it. I did not want to do it. It was scary for me. It was hard for me. And I did it. And I had everyone staring at me, everybody looking at me. I had to talk about subjects that in many cases were not in agreement with other people. I was in a farming community, and I was talking about veganism as a teenager, and people just staring at me with their arms crossed and maybe their cowboy hats on. Like, what is this guy doing? And little did I know that would become my professional career, speaking on stages in China, in Australia, in London, and all these exotic places. And it was through practice and through repetition that I was finally able to do it. And funny story, I think Prabhat was there, and this didn't cause anxiety, okay? It did at the moment, but I haven't thought about it too much over the years. I always have to use the restroom right before I get on stage, right? It's just something I do. I just got to use the restroom to get on stage. It was at this rooftop event out in Hollywood somewhere, out in Los Angeles, where I was visiting on tour. And I went to use the bathroom really quickly before I was the only speaker. People came to see me. And I somehow got locked in. Someone locked it from the outside. I was locked in the restroom in fact, Prabhat might have been introducing me as my bio was being read. So I had a cell phone on me, and this is 15 years ago. I called my roommate who was there, and I said, "Can you come let me out of the bathroom? I'm stuck." And then I ran right out of the bathroom and got on stage. But those kinds of crazy things can happen and can throw you off. That was all part of this learning experience. And one more thing, I did stand-up comedy for a while.
No kidding.
Not very long, but I did stand-up comedy in Portland, Oregon, where I lived at the time, at open mic and even at a larger comedy club when I got a little bit better at it.
Mhm.
And that helped me too, because now I incorporate humor into all of my presentations, which, when you're talking about plant-based protein and all this stuff, it's not always the most exciting topic for people. But
Mm.
when you can make funny examples and tell funny stories and get people to laugh, that's part of it as well. And that helps ease you a little bit too.
Oh, certainly. It turns down our limbic brain, makes people feel safe and connected. So did you do that because you were doing more public speaking, or did you actually have an interest in stand-up comedy at the time?
I had a real interest in stand-up comedy. I love sketch comedy, like Saturday Night Live. I was at Oregon State University. I was part of this comedy club. We had public access television where we would do sketch comedy and play characters and dress up and practice lines. And I used to do that. I had a camcorder that I would set up. One of those JVC things I bought in the 90s for like $800 that I would record myself and put it on VHS and watch it. And I really had aspirations to, in a way, to make it out in Hollywood. And I wanted to be in movies and all this stuff. And eventually I was in a number of documentaries. I can't remember how many, but probably 5 to 10, largely because of my role as a vegan bodybuilder. Produced my own documentary in 2005 called Vegan Fitness Built Naturally, and sold a few thousand DVDs, when I was on tour, super low budget kind of thing. But, comedy was something I was drawn to and wanted to do. And so now, like you, I get the opportunity to speak on stage, and I incorporate that comedy into my public speaking, into my presentation about building your body on a plant-based diet. And it's just been a lot of fun, and it's a really rewarding experience where I get to combine comedy with education, with personal fulfillment, with uplifting others, and it's just been really, really nice to see it all come full circle.
Oh my God, you are truly the epitome of what it is like to have a vision, have the discipline to be that person every day. And I got to say, speaking with you and connecting with you, I feel uplifted. I know that people who are going to read this book are going to get the latest information of how to do a plant-based diet right, but also get the information of mindset of what it really takes to be the person that they want to be. So congratulations with this book coming up. You're a great person with vision. What do you see this book doing to the world, and where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's always evolving, as my interests change and as my interests get piqued in other areas, like, oh, I want to go do this now, or pursue this now. And with this book, The Plant-Based Athlete, I hope it is really, truly the unequivocal standard bearer in this movement. And I don't say that from an ego perspective. I mean, I have a co-author with this book. We hired a professional writer as well. I have Dr. Michael Greger, who wrote the foreword. It's been endorsed by Dr. Campbell and others. There's 50 other athletes in it. It's really a group effort. Yes, I did the majority of the writing. I did all of the interviews myself. I've done a tremendous amount of work with this book. But it's something that so many people have contributed to, and it wouldn't be here without them. And I think because we have Rich Roll and Scott Jurek and Fiona Oakes and James Wilkes from the Game Changers and Rip Esselstyn and Dotsie Bausch and all these well-known plant-based athletes who are some of the best in the world in the book, I think they're going to get behind it and feel proud of it and happy about it and share it. And I think this will be the #1 plant-based fitness book in the world. That it basically already is, but maybe one of the top plant-based books, period, because we cover so much. We cover the plant-based nutrition, we cover the fitness component, we cover the mindset component, we cover the meal plans, and we cover the recipes. Not a lot of books do that. They cover cookbook topics, recipes, or they cover ethics and environmental stuff, which we do dabble in a tiny bit. They cover just nutrition and preventing disease and overcoming disease and all that, which again, we cover some of that as well and reference numerous studies, dozens of studies. But I think this book has potential to really soar. And that's what we want to do. I don't know if I told you, offline in an email or something already, but the book isn't even out yet at the time of that we're recording.
Yeah.
And we already have deals in the US, Canada, Germany, and Taiwan, and upcoming deals in mainland China, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. And then, of course, it'll be translated into French and Italian and Czech and all this very likely in the future. This book is what I've been waiting for 33 years, ever since I decided in 3rd grade I wanted to be a writer. And one of the coolest things, Dr. V, I'm in touch with my third grade teacher right now and sharing this moment with her. And at that same elementary school, my fourth and fifth grade teacher, who's, I've argued, my favorite teacher of all time, just emailed me yesterday. She's 91 years old, and thanked me for the advanced signed copy that I sent her in the mail. And her daughter is vegan, and she continues to follow my work 30 years after I was in her class, which I believe was her last class before she retired around age 60, teaching fifth graders, and now in her 90s. And she's still in my hometown, and bumps into my mom at the grocery store. And that is the greatest. Like that is the best feeling for me.
Oh my God. I could feel the emotion in your body right now. Congratulations. And I don't think this is going to be, only the #1 top plant-based book out there. I think it's going to hit the top of the charts and anything health and wellness, bar none, all around. So congratulations there.
Thank you.
Now, before I ask my very, very last question, where do people find you? How can people get a hold of the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is sold everywhere books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop, IndieBound. We do have a bunch of digital bonuses when people pre-order, because that's a really, really important thing in the success of a book. Those are available on book.nomeatathlete.com. My co-author created that page. You can also find a link to it on veganbodybuilding.com, which is a website I've been running for almost 20 years. And those digital bonuses are like, a secret chapter that's unreleased, a special live Q&A with me and my co-author, meal plans, additional meal plans that pair with recipes in the book, something you would like, an accountability workshop, because both my co-author and I have been able to make, meaningful things happen in our own careers. And we have methods for that. We have systems for that. And so we have a whole bunch of digital bonuses that people can get by pre-ordering. And also, it's really, really important. I mean, one really crazy story is the last time we sent everybody, we just drove, as many people as we could to order on a specific day. We shot up the Amazon charts, and we're #1 bestseller in multiple categories. And Amazon got alerted because of the activity, and they ordered 7,000 more copies.
Wow.
And so now they have, tens of thousands of copies in circulation, and we're poised to hopefully walk out of here in late June as a New York Times bestseller. And every single person listening, I mean, this is obviously my goal, my dream, my passion. A $25 purchase can help make my dream come true. But the book is also really, really, really good. It is, just a good investment. And whether you're plant-based, or someone who is, or even someone who's just interested in these stories, these people that have achieved amazing things, thriving on a plant-based diet, it's worth, I like to say, my 25 years experience, I think is worth $25. And I would appreciate anyone's support, whether you get it from Amazon or your local independent bookstore down the street. Every single order means a lot to someone who's worked his entire life to get here. And Dr. V, I thank you for the platform. That's as good as it gets as an author, as to be able to share your passion with an engaged audience. And I just thank you for the opportunity.
You guys need to get the book. And how do people find you? People, how do people get more of your energy? Where do people find you online?
Yeah, you can search Robert Cheek, just like your face, but with an E on the end. Robert Cheek. I'm Robert.Cheek on Instagram. I also have a vegan bodybuilding and fitness account on Instagram that I use a lot. And or they can find me on veganbodybuilding.com. And, I'm out there on social media. Again, just search my name, Robert Cheek. You'll find me. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm sharing before and after photos. I'm sharing the stories of even my 91-year-old former teacher who wrote yesterday, which resonated with so many people, because it's palpable. The dream is unfolding. And I also do all kinds of bonuses. When people order copies and email me their receipt, I send them, bonuses and all this stuff too.
That's beautiful. Well, here's the last question for you. You've lived such a full life, certainly got all the tricks in the trade for health and performance. But in your life, what has been your best medicine?
My best medicine, I think, has been the pursuit of happiness, because that has taken me around the world. Like I said, I wanted to be a writer. I also wanted to be a bodybuilder. I also wanted to travel around the world. So I did. I worked on cruise ships. I spent early part of my 20s working on cruise ships and traveling to 30 different countries, working in the spa, working in different departments, because I've had this constant pursuit of happiness. Like that's what keeps me going. And I never did answer your question about where I see myself in 5 or 10 years, but it's that same thing. I don't know what that's going to be. You know, 1 year it's working on cruise ships. 1 year it's writing a book. 1 year it's being a champion bodybuilder. 1 year it's, cultivating relationship and getting married and adopting rescue dogs. It's all these different things. So I don't know exactly what the future holds, but it's going to be a constant pursuit of happiness.
And, that's beautiful.
And that's what means a lot to me.
The pursuit of happiness, being your very best medicine. Robert Cheeke, thank you for the time. His co-author is Matt Frazier. The book is The Plant-Based Athlete, a game-changing approach to peak performance. I recommend it. I want all of you to get a copy. Robert Cheeke, thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you, Dr. V. Really appreciate the conversation today.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're finding this podcast to be valuable, if you're learning a lot, please share with your friends and family members, and please consider leaving a 5-star review at ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. That review is really going to help the show grow. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State, at thrivestatebook.com. I would love to connect with you on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and LinkedIn at Hien Vu MD. Remember, you are your best medicine.